The brain's need for an explanation is not neutral. It is an active force that will invent one if none is available, and the invented explanation will feel indistinguishable from the real one. You cannot tell the difference from the inside, and that is the reason you are currently carrying several confident beliefs about your own life that are not knowledge. They are the brain's solution to the discomfort of not knowing. You have made decisions based on them. You have a framework for why things in your life turned out the way they did, why the relationship ended, why the career move worked or did not work, why certain people succeeded and you did not, or you did and they did not. The framework feels earned. You lived through the events, you thought about them, you arrived at conclusions. What the framework actually is, in most cases, is the first story that removed the discomfort of uncertainty. Not the most accurate story, the first one that was coherent enough to make the discomfort stop. You are not unusual in this. Every person who has ever thought carefully about anything has done the same thing. The mechanism is not a flaw in your reasoning. It is the standard operating mode of a brain that cannot function under sustained uncertainty, and so has developed a way of resolving it quickly, whether the resolution is accurate or not. The problem is not that you made a story. The problem is that you stopped there and called it an answer. The concept is this. The brain cannot tolerate the absence of explanation for long, so it generates one. Not from malice, not from laziness, from structure. The discomfort of not knowing triggers a resolution process, and the resolution process does not distinguish between an accurate answer and a satisfying one. A satisfying answer and an accurate answer are not the same thing. They feel the same from the inside. The difference only shows up when the answer is tested against new events and fails to predict them. A useful analogy, a lock that opens in response to any key inserted with enough force is not a working lock. Your brain's explanation mechanism operates on a similar principle. It accepts the first account that fits the shape of the question well enough to stop the discomfort of the opening. Once the discomfort stops, the investigation stops with it, and the account that stopped the discomfort gets treated, from that point forward, as fact. At 10:47 a.m. on July 3, 1988, the USS Vincennes is in the Persian Gulf in an active surface engagement with Iranian gunboats. The Vincennes is an Aegis cruiser, the most technologically advanced surface warship in the United States Navy at that time. Its Combat Information Center carries the most sophisticated radar and tracking systems afloat. The crew is trained. The systems are functioning. At 10:54 a.m., radar contact is made with an aircraft departing Bandar Abbas Airport in Iran on a scheduled northwesterly route over the Persian Gulf. The aircraft is Iran Air Flight 655, an Airbus A300 wide-body commercial airliner carrying 290 passengers and crew on a routine flight to Dubai. The contact is squawking Mode 3 on its transponder. Mode 3 is the civilian aviation code. The aircraft is climbing normally. It is on a standard commercial flight path that the crew's charts show as a commercial corridor. The crew of the Vincennes identifies the contact as an F-14 Tomcat in a descending attack profile. At 10:54 a.m., Captain Rogers authorizes the launch of two SM-2MR surface-to-air missiles. Both strike the aircraft at 13,500 feet. All 290 people aboard are killed. The Navy's investigation finds that the crew had been in a state it calls scenario fulfillment. Under the stress of the ongoing surface engagement, they had formed a mental model of the contact as a threat, and then processed incoming data through that model rather than examining the data directly. The altitude readings showing a climbing aircraft were reported by crew members as descending. The Mode 3 civilian transponder code was reported as Mode 2. Both readings contradicted the threat scenario. Both were reported as confirming it. The systems were accurate. The crew was experienced. The data was available. What was not available was the capacity to stay in the discomfort of not yet knowing what the contact was long enough to read what the data actually said. The answer arrived before the information did. And 290 people were on the aircraft that answer misidentified. The Vincennes story is extreme and specific, but the cognitive process underneath it is not. It runs across every domain where human beings are under pressure and facing ambiguous information. In 1847, a physician at Vienna General Hospital named Ignaz Semmelweis publishes data showing that the mortality rate in his maternity ward drops from over 10% to under 2% when medical staff wash their hands before deliveries. His colleagues reject the finding. The explanation they were already carrying, that childbed fever was caused by miasma or constitutional factors in the patients, was too established and too comfortable to examine. Semmelweis dies in 1865 with his finding unaccepted. The germ theory that would eventually explain his data does not gain acceptance until the 1880s. The physicians who rejected him were not stupid. They had adopted an explanation early and stopped investigating. You are doing the same thing right now in at least one area of your life. You have adopted an explanation for why something is the way it is and stopped there. The explanation is coherent. It fits the general shape of what happened, and it stops the discomfort of not knowing. The area where you are most certain is the area most worth examining. Not because certainty is wrong, because the feeling of certainty and the state of having an accurate answer are not reliably connected. The relationship you have mapped completely. The reason you know why it failed or why it works. The career narrative you have constructed about why you are, where you are, and what that means about where you can go. The explanation you carry for why certain kinds of people succeed and others do not, and where you fit in that map. Each of those explanations arrived at a moment when the discomfort of not knowing was high. Each of them resolved that discomfort, and once the discomfort was resolved, the investigation ended. You are now holding the explanation that was good enough to stop the pain. Not necessarily the one that is accurate. The principle is this: treat your explanations as working hypotheses rather than settled conclusions, and stay in contact with the information that would change them if they are wrong. This is not the same as refusing to draw conclusions. Conclusions are necessary for action. The difference is between holding a conclusion as a tool that can be replaced when better information arrives and treating it as a fact that new information must be fitted around. In practice, this means maintaining a specific category of attention toward the data that does not fit your current explanation. The person in your life whose behavior your model does not predict well. The outcome in your career that your narrative about yourself cannot account for. The result in your finances that the story you carry about markets does not explain. Those data points are not anomalies to be explained away. They are the leading edge of a more accurate account. What you give up is the comfort of the settled explanation. It costs something real. Uncertainty is not neutral to carry. The brain is not designed for it and will resist it. What you get is the ability to update when the situation changes, rather than carrying forward an explanation built on conditions that no longer exist and applying it to a world that has moved past them. The crew of the Vincennes was not underprepared. They were operating under the one condition that training alone cannot fully address. The moment when the answer you are holding becomes more real to you than the data in front of you. You are in that moment right now about something. Not knowing that is exactly the problem. I can live with doubt and uncertainty and not knowing. Richard Feynman, physicist. Most people cannot. And that gap is not a personality difference. It is a practiced capacity. Next video. The reason you remember the times your instincts were right and forget the times they were wrong is not random. The brain has a specific architecture for protecting the story it has built about its own reliability. The mechanism behind this has been documented in detail. It operates without your awareness. And it is running right now on the decisions you made last week. You are not immune to it because you know it exists.